guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be finishing up the Warriors of Chaos book here. Some of this is going to be rehash from the Demons of Chaos book. So if you want more details, if you're new to Warhammer and you want more details on Chaos Gods, I would recommend going and watching the Demons of Chaos videos that I did, or finding the PDFs for the army books, which are available online if you look a little bit. Anyways, the Chaos Gods. There are 4 great Chaos Gods, 4 brothers in darkness, who rule the infernal region known as the Realm of Chaos. From their vantage point beyond space and time, the Chaos Gods ponder the feeble antics of mortals much as a man might study a nest of insects. The Dark Gods are known throughout the world by many other names, and their shapes may vary in appearance. However, they will still be recognized as either Khorne the Blood God, Tzeentch the Great Deceiver, Nurgle the Lord of Decay, or Slaanesh the Dark Prince of Chaos. It is the goal of all the followers of Chaos to gain the attention of one of these ruinous powers. Each champion of Chaos will worship a single deity above all others. Those whose fell deeds have distinguished themselves in the eye of their patron are said to have been marked by their god in some way, a sign of their master's favor and a warning to that god's rivals that this soul is already claimed. These are the most outlandish of all warriors of chaos, for they enjoy great favor from their total dedication. Khorne is the blood god, the lord of murder, the embodiment of anger whose bellows of rage echo throughout the multiverse. He sits upon a throne of brass, atop an ever-growing mountain of skulls that jut out of a sea of blood and splintered bones, the remains of those slain by his battle-hungry champions. Khorne is the god of warriors, and his gaze is drawn to bloody battles and gory displays of martial skill. Khorne is the most powerful of the Dark Gods. His chief rival is Tzeentch, whose sorceries he views as cowardly, but he most despises Slaanesh, whose excesses are an affront to the Blood God's sense of martial pride. Even so, this rivalry does not prevent Khorne from making common cause with his brothers when there is fresh blood to be spilled. Nurgle is the Lord of Decay, who presides over physical corruption and morbidity. He is the father of plagues, and putrefactions are attracted to him like flies to a rotted corpse. For his amusement, he devises foul contagions that he inflicts upon the mortal world, the results of which greatly fascinate him. Nurgle's gaze is thus drawn to those mortals bloated with sickness, and he generously favors those who spread disease in his name. Although Nurgle is ranked behind Khorne and Tzeentch, the truth is that his power is not necessarily weaker, but that it is less stable than that of his brothers. Like a plague, his strength can grow in virulence and reach epidemic levels, temporarily overshadowing that of all the other gods put together, before consuming itself and waning again. Tzeentch is the changer of ways, the god of magic and the weaver of time. He is also known as the Great Deceiver, he who directs the fate of the universe. Tzeentch guides mortals along paths destined to increase increase his own power, though they may never realize their part in his plan. Tzeentch is the patron of many sorcerers, for he shows favor to those who use cunning and intelligence to manipulate and control the world, and he delights in watching the conspiracies of mortals unfold. Tzeentch is almost as powerful as Khorne, but his power takes a very different form, for the Changer of Ways is the master of magic and subtlety. Tzeentch's plots are infinitely complex and interwoven, and he is the principal architect of secret alliances between his brother gods. Slaanesh. Slaanesh is the Dark Prince of Chaos, the youngest of the 4 great gods. Neither male nor female, Slaanesh's seductive beauty can bind a mortal to eternal service. Known as the Lord of Excess, Slaanesh is the master of luxurious passions and sensual indulgence, but also of cruel torments and despairing agony. Slaanesh is the patron of the obsessive, and his attention is drawn to those who inflict pain to satisfy their own desires. Though Slaanesh is the least of the dark gods, he is an important player in the divine game whose favor can swing the balance of power, giving him influence disproportionate to his strength. However, his power is growing all the time, and soon the Dark Prince will come to rival his brothers, and, who knows, even rise above them. So I guess something they're not going to tell you in this book that they did in the Demons of Chaos book is that Slaanesh actually feeds off of the other 3 gods. He's the newest god. He's the youngest god. Which is why he's not particularly powerful currently, but all 3 of the other gods, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Khorne, all represent a form of excess, and so anything that they do, Slaanesh feeds on. Which I think is pretty cool. Of course, we never got to see that, but only fools claim to understand chaos, for by definition, chaos is inhuman and incomprehensible. Mortal sages and mystics who dare ponder the nature of chaos are driven mad, or else succeed only in attracting the attentions of the fell creatures of chaos. Many wise men have been carried alive and screaming to the carnal houses of the realm of chaos, there to writhe in eternal debate with the demons of torment. Of those who do not heed the warnings, some have claimed that chaos in its eternal diversity has spawned an infinite number of gods, each the collective mirror of one of the many survivalist emotions projected by intelligent beings in the mortal plane. Others say that all the apparently different gods are no more than aspects of one supreme being, the great untamable one, the abomination, the eternal destroyer, the unspeakable beast, the chaos undivided. Or if you buy into the true theory of chaos, the great horned rat. However, the true nature of chaos is beyond any comprehension. No mortal can hope to understand these matters, and the wise do not puzzle too deeply into the nature of the chaos gods, or try to fathom their eternal wars, epic rivalries, and ever-shifting bickering. The realm of chaos. Far to the north of the old world, the blighted region known as the realm of chaos bleeds across the crest of the world from a gaping wound in the fabric of reality. Excuse me. This is the source of all magic and the legendary home to the lost and the damned, and of infinitely worse things. The realm of Chaos is the birthplace of heroes, demons, and monsters, the forge from which eternal life or everlasting damnation can be wrought. In reality, the realm of Chaos is this, and incomprehensibly more besides. A cosmically vast realm where the laws of physics do not apply. It is said to be a tangled landscape of insanity, where slaughter, bloodshed, and the thirsting of dark gods reigns supreme. Within its bounds, not even the concept of time holds any meaning. A champion may battle within this twisted realm for long months and discover upon his return to reality that only a single day, or an entire century, has passed. Tales abound that some have even emerged from their unholy quests before they were born. In terms of mere mortal understanding, the legends alone must suffice, for it is impossible for a man to truly know the nature of chaos without losing his mind, his body, and his soul. Only a madman would even consider journeying to this forsaken realm, a man whose insane ambitions and desire for power overcome all rational thought. Such a mortal is driven by a thirst that cannot be quenched in the mortal world, and he is drawn northwards to the realm of chaos by the lure of power promised to those strong enough to take it. The chaos wastes. The further north a traveler walks, the more desolate, surreal, and inhospitable the terrain becomes. The traveler will have to pass through these chaos wastes if his desire is to cross the boundary between worlds and reach the realm of chaos. The winds that blow here are not those of air, but of pure sorcery, and the storm-shaken sky boils with eldritch power. Here, one can witness the rebellion of nature itself, where even the elements are torn between the mortal and immortal worlds. The trees are contorted into blackened skeletons, straining their branches towards warm-blooded creatures. Blood-stained plains are covered in a forest of petrified forms, where entire armies have been transformed into statues of gold, marble, and gemstones by the breath of uncaring gods. The mountains in this blasted place have twisted into fantastical shapes, and gaping maws jut out of cliff faces, bellowing to be fed the flesh of mortals. Jagged peaks and metallic spikes thrust out of the land like splintered bones, and rivers of lava run backwards through deep fissures in the snow-covered plains. Monoliths, raised to the glory of Chaos champions, dot the untracked wilderness. Their pitted surface constantly ooze blood, and are carved with legends of fell deeds. Vast, skull-topped bastions cast shadows across the snow, which play out scenes of slaughter and death as they dance and flicker. From their flame-wreathed eyries, chimerae swoop down to feast on those below, their dry-headed roars causing the blood to run as cold as ice. Across this impossible, nightmarish landscape stalk dark champions who roam the wastes in search of eternal glory and unending war, and only the greatest amongst them will ever reach the borders of the realm of chaos alive. Were our traveler such a survivor, and he stepped over the boundary, he would find a region of infinite space altogether removed from the mortal world. Words alone are incapable of describing that which lies beyond oblivion's veil. Thus we must leave our traveler at the gates of chaos, where we are unable to follow, even in our imagination. That kind of sounded like Carl Sagan from Cosmos. Thus we must leave our traveler at the gates of chaos, where we are unable to follow, even in our imagination. The Northlands. Lying close to the borders of chaos, the Northlands are saturated with malefic forces. It is a frozen wasteland stalked by all manner of gruesome monsters and roving barbarians. ground is as hard as iron, and the howling winds cut like daggers of purest cold. A network of fjords and mist-shrouded islands wreathe the coastline, and it is here that the Northmen build and tether the longships with which they terrorize the shores of the known world. In the lands of Norska, lying between the Sea Claws and the Sea of Chaos, scattered coastal settlements provide some respite from the cruel elements, yet they are often attacked by blood krakens and other horrors. Further inland, the ice gives way to frozen steppes, and eventually to open plains, where the tribes of horsemen hunt and stay clear of bone-carpeted ice drake lairs. Hopefully you can't hear that outside my door. It is a grim and shadowy land where the weak do not live long, and meaning means a constant fight, and living, living means a constant fight for survival, supremacy, and the chance to appease the gods. From the Northlands, one can see that the realm of chaos is an ever-pulsing thing that ebbs and flows into the real world like an irregular tide. The power of chaos has always waxed and waned, and for most of the time, the shadow of its touch lies close against the poles. However, as the borders expand, the encroachment is accompanied by great outpourings of chaos warbands. Scholars have postulated that the two are intrinsically linked, as if it is the warband's collective desires to wreak havoc that fuels the realm's expansion. If true, then unless the incursions of chaos can be defeated, the realm of chaos will eventually encompass the entire globe, and all will be swallowed in insanity and death. Troll Country. The area north of Kislev is a malign wilderness known as Troll Country. No tribes dwell here, for the predators that stalk its untrammeled wastes are beyond counting. No other realm in the mortal world harbors as many monsters, the most common of which are trolls of all breeds, from the slime-covered and scaly beasts that wallow in the fish stink of its polluted rivers, to the unblinking two-headed horrors that lie in wait within its mist-wreathed haunts. The mutating power of chaos has touched more than trolls in this benighted place, however. Packs of ice wolves hunt down and pounce upon those who stray into their territory, their mournful howls piercing the night. Cockatrices dwell within the cavernous layers, and manticores soar high above mountain ranges in search of fresh prey. Frostworms make their lairs across the frozen tundra, still as death until the footfalls of trespassers trigger a murderous burst of activity. Though the sane men of the old world abhor Troll Country as a frozen purgatory from which few return, the champions of chaos frequently brave its dangers, for where better to seek eternal glory than in a land that harbors more monsters than men? The Great Invasion. Actually, let me see how long this is. Okay. The Great Invasion. Over the ages, the old world has known many wars. The kingdoms of man have defeated these threats, yet each new danger emerges greater than the last, and every battle is won at an ever-increasing cost. Of all these wars, one alone is known as the Great Invasion, or, as the men of the old world call it, the Great War against Chaos. A time of omens. Throughout the summer of the imperial year 2301, portents of disaster blossomed across the empire. Wells mysteriously overflowed with blood, and pigs rose up on their hind legs and began to scream with human voices. Crops shriveled or were devoured by plagues of insects, many of which had the leering faces of men. Few doubted that the empire lay under a curse, and whom else but the ruinous powers could be responsible for such a catalogue of woe? To the Kurgan warlord, Asavar anointed, the Empire seemed weak and ripe for conquest. There was no centralized authority to oppose him, for the Empire was currently divided between its squabbling elector counts. So it was that Khorne made ready for war. The gathering of might, as the gateways that divide worlds swelled with power. A dark shadow spilled southwards, engulfing the wastelands and absorbing them into the realm of chaos. Before this irresistible tide, the minions of the dark powers gathered, and Khorne drew them to his cause. He was joined by countless tribes of northern barbarians and roving bands of chaos warriors. As the shadow fell over Troll Country, all manner of mutant beasts flocked to Khorne's banner, attracted by the unmistakable lure of raw power. Demonic hosts crossed the veil from the realm of chaos and marched to the Anointed's side. And in the northernmost forests of the Empire, beastmen gathered in unprecedented numbers. Khorne truly had the favor of all the Chaos Gods, who appeared to have put aside their timeless rivalries and united their armies for the subjugation of the mortal world. So it was that the Anointed emerged with an unholy horde so massive that it was like a sea of blades sweeping over the land. Blood in the snow. As winter dug into the Northlands, the Chaos host marched south. This invasion force was spotted by Kislevite outriders, who quickly raised the alarm. Reinforced by the soldiers of the Elector Count of Ostland, the entire army of Kislev moved north to intercept them without delay. The Kislevites fought like maddened bears, but the ironclad infantry regiments at the heart of the Chaos host proved nigh unstoppable. Nonetheless, a cavalry charge from Kislev's Griffin Legion collapsed one enemy flank, and for a moment hope glimmered in the hearts of men. But soon the skies blackened, and that hope was quickly extinguished. The Shaggoth, known as Golek Sun-Eater, stormed into the fray, leading a throng of his dragon ogre kin, and the Griffin Legion were scattered before their fury. The Chaos forces renewed their assault, and in the space of an hour, the virgin white snow underfoot was turned into a blood-stained slush, strewn with the remains of the Kislev and Ostland soldiery. The dread horde paused only to lay waste to the northern part of the Tsar's territory, before moving further south. The surviving Kislevites thought that the raging river Lynsk would force their enemy to cross at the bridges. The Tsar's armies thus prepared to defend them to the last, but Khorne's sorcerers unleashed fell magic, and as they did so, the waters grew thick with blood and froze. Khorne's vanguard of Chosen crossed the frozen river in lockstep, thousands of armored feet crunching upon the hard crust of blood-red ice. The Kislevites were caught from all sides and swiftly butchered. There was now nothing to bar Khorne's path to the heartlands of Kislev and the teeming city of Prague. The fall of Prague. In Prague, the people prepared for a siege. Thousands flooded into the city from the surrounding countryside, bringing with them what provisions they could, but it was not enough. Soon the citizens were starving, and in their weakened condition they were easy prey for the gifts of the plague god Nurgle. Disease spread through the city like wildfire, and the streets soon filled with pox-ridden corpses. Khorne made no attempt to seize the city until the pestilence had done its work. The people of Prague barely survived, hoping beyond hope that a relief force would arrive, for rumors of a heroic new leader from the south called Magnus had reached their ears. A paragon amongst nobles was bringing an army to their salvation. Indeed, in the south, the flock of Magnus of Nuln grew ever stronger. He gathered unto him an army, loyal devotees of Sigmar and professional soldiers from across the Empire. Recognizing in Magnus a leader that could unite the troubled factions of the old world, the Elector Counts of the Empire pledged their support, and as one, they led their troops to join him. Soon a vast army of men marched northward, intent on breaking the siege of Prague. But their progress was slow, and with every passing day the people of Prague grew weaker. When the plague was at its height in the winter of 2302, Ghoul changed his tactics from the iron grip of siege to the majesty of all-out attack. The outer defenses of the city proved little obstacle to Ghoul's monstrous allies. In particular, Golek's Sun-Eater smashed a great wound in the city walls with a hammer older than the race of man. Roaring in triumph, the warriors of Chaos poured in. Magnus was too late. An advance force of his elite cavalry lay but a day's march from the city, but to no avail. Prague had fallen. The city of the damned. With Prague in ruins, Asavar Kul commanded his sorcerers to perform a ritual, and at its culmination a black wind swept through the city that transformed everything it touched. Men and stone bled together to form hideous living statues. Pillars groaned with human voices and distorted faces peered out from walls. Prague had become a nightmare incarnate, a taste of what lay ahead for the rest of the old world. After the fall of Prague, the Chaos Horde moved south once again, passing Magnus's advanced force without realizing it. When the Empire cavalry reached Prague, they witnessed the horror that had overtaken the stricken city. Grim of aspect and purpose, they moved in pursuit of the Chaos Horde and soon encountered the rearguard remnants of the fell host. The noble knights of the Empire fell upon the evil force with a ferocity born of outrage. It was a minor victory, but a victory nonetheless. Meanwhile, the bulk of the Chaos Horde continued its advance into the heartlands of Kislev. Further south, the main Empire army, led by Magnus himself, arrived at the city of Kislev just in time to see the Chaos forces surrounded. Chaos warriors stood in serried ranks, waiting for the order to advance. Sorcerers rode amongst the troops on beasts of foul appearance. Monsters, demons, and a vast number of trolls and beastmen thronged at the periphery of the horde, bellowing and braying in anticipation of the slaughter to come. The battle at Kislev's gates. Within Kislev, Tsar Alexis took command of a new, hastily assembled army. With them stood dwarves from Karazakarak, led by High King Alricson. Though few in number, these doughty warriors had marched to honor the ancient alliance between man and dwarf, and they were the most battle-hardened of their kind. In the first chaos attack, Ghoul committed his monstrous and demonic allies. Following a furious assault, they drove Kislev's defenders from the outer defenses. The last to reach the safety of the city were the dwarves, whose stubborn rearguard action held giants and chimerae at bay long enough for the humans to reach safety. As Ghoul prepared to assault the city again, Magnus's army reached the outskirts of the Chaos encampment and immediately fell upon their foes. Magnus' blow fell like the hammer of Sigmar himself. Thousands of Chaos troops were slaughtered, and the forces of the Dark Gods were hard-pressed to halt Magnus's furious charge. A victim of its own fastness, the Chaos army took a long time to redeploy in response to Magnus's attack, but eventually its superior numbers began to tell. The advance of the Empire was halted, and Magnus soon found himself encircled by a wall of steel-clad warriors. The Empire army formed into a defensive circle, and all around them, the warriors of Chaos hefted their blades, aspiring champions stepping forward to challenge the leaders of Magnus's army. Fearing that their saviors would be destroyed before them, the dwarves marched from the south gate and took their axes to their tormentors. However, the Chaos warriors before them were Ghoul's personal guard, and not even the most hardened dwarf could stand against them. They were beaten back, and barely half returned to the city alive. With the threats from Magnus and the dwarves repelled, Ghoul summoned his mightiest lieutenants, Chaos Lords who rode upon the back of savage manticores, and a trio of sorcerers mounted upon two-headed Chaos dragons, to raise the city gates. However, just as they were about to reach Kislev's walls, the tide of battle took a sudden and dramatic turn. Magnus's cavalry, the same that had reached Prague too late, arrived upon the northern flank of the Chaos army. With tremendous ferocity, the Empire's knights galloped into the Chaos lines, lances lowered. Magnus, though exhausted, realized that with the cavalry's arrival, victory could yet be claimed. Summoning the last of his strength, he stood in his saddle and exhorted his men to make one final attack. Kislev's defenders witnessed the cavalry attack and saw the dark forces begin to turn. The city gates opened, and every last man and dwarf rushed out to crush their besiegers. Khul himself fell during the last assault. A jagged blade punched through the back of his neck. Some say the favor of the gods was withdrawn from him at a critical moment. Others that he felt a sword thrust from one of his own lieutenants. In any case, without his force of will to unite them, the Chaos forces began to crumble. Caught from three sides, the once disciplined Chaos Horde devolved into a screaming mass. By day's end, the vast army was broken and shattered. A new dawn. Following the battle at Kislev's gates, darkness withdrew from the southern lands. The city of Prague was rebuilt, though ever afterwards it remained a haunted place. Magnus the Pious, as he became known, was crowned emperor, and the forces of Chaos were driven back into Troll Country and beyond. The great war against Chaos was at an end. The temporary alliance between the Chaos gods ended too. Perhaps they were content to test the defenses of mankind, or merely to indulge in a glut of bloodshed, for their true plans are unfathomable. Over the next 2 centuries, the forces of Chaos gathered strength, awaiting the next attempt to wrest control of the old world from its mortal lords. And there is where we are going to call this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider sharing it. And I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.